their own country. More than 800,000 people have become internally displaced within Ukraine. Many more people are trying to flee, but can't get out of besieged areas. There have continued to be reports of shelling by Russian forces on agreed-upon humanitarian corridors. We continue to call on Russia to allow for humanitarian access on the ground, both for supplies for people who've been cut off from food, from water, from medicine, and for humanitarian organizations like the International Committee of the Red Cross that can negotiate true humanitarian corridors so that civilians can safely leave the country. Estonia and the United States, together with our allies and partners, will continue to stand with Ukraine. We're increasing our security assistance to strengthen Ukraine's capacity to defend itself. Working with our humanitarian partners on the ground, we're providing more aid to people who are still inside Ukraine, as well as those who've left. And we're raising the costs on the Kremlin and all who aid and abet its efforts in continuing this war of choice. Our administration is also working with Congress to see to it that we can do even more. President Biden's request for an additional $10 billion would enable us to surge security, humanitarian, and economic assistance where it's needed. For its part, Estonia has provided many kinds of assistance to Ukraine, including Javelin anti-tank missiles and howitzers, food and medical aid to the front lines, a pledge to welcome more than 10,000 refugees, if they choose to come here, into Estonian homes, into Estonian communities. And as everywhere we've been in the Baltics over this last day, we continue to see an outpouring of support for the Ukrainian people. We continue to see the yellow and blue on homes and buildings. And it's a powerful message of solidarity. And together, as the Prime Minister said, Estonia and the United States are bolstering our shared security and shared defense. As President Biden said, we will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of our collective power. Our commitment to Article 5 is ironclad. An attack on one would be an attack on all. We and our NATO allies are prepared to meet any threat coming in our direction from wherever it comes. NATO activated our defense plans for the eastern flank for the first time in its history in response to Russia's aggression, giving the Supreme Allied Commander of Europe the authority to deploy NATO response forces as needed. Many allies have increased their troop presence and contributed additional equipment and capabilities. President Biden ordered the deployment of an additional 7,000 U.S. troops to Europe and moved forces already in Europe to NATO's eastern flank. We deployed F-35 strike fighter jets to the region. We're augmenting NATO's enhanced air policing mission. And we're working with Estonia and Baltic neighbors on cybersecurity, on energy security, which are also critically important to our shared security. Over the past 30 years, the Baltics have formed a democratic wall that's now standing against the tide of authoritarianism that Moscow is seeking to push further into Europe. Estonia has become one of the most advanced digital societies in the world, with a strong free press, a business culture fueled by innovation, citizens empowered to do everything from voting to getting a passport online. What a comparison to Moscow, which viciously targets journalists and floods the internet and airwaves with disinformation, both around the world and at home. Many people in Russia have no idea what their government is doing right now in Ukraine. They think they're liberating Ukraine, not destroying it. Moscow has banned Facebook and Twitter to make it easier to sell its lies. One of the weak points of autocracies is that they rely on total control of information. So, we'll continue our efforts to counter Russian disinformation and expose the true costs of this war to the Russian people, both the profound costs to Ukraine and the Ukrainian people, and the costs to Russian people themselves, which are mounting every single day. The ruble is cratered. MasterCard, Visa, Apple Pay have shut down. Dozens of leading companies, from Nike to Coca-Cola, FedEx to Spotify, Netflix to Toyota, have exited the country. President Putin is making Russia a pariah, destroying in the space of a week 30 years of international openness and opportunity. The Russian people are already feeling the effects of this in their everyday lives, and that will increase. We hope they can learn the truth about why this is happening. This is not the Russian people's war. It's not a war of liberation or whatever else they've been told. This is President Putin's war to subjugate a sovereign democratic country. And until he ends it, the world will hold him accountable. At this critical moment for democracy in Eastern Europe, it is all the more important that democracies like Estonia, all of the Baltics, continue to represent the better path and rise to the challenge of the moment. The United States will stand with you as you do. Today, I should note, is International Women's Day, and I'm very pleased to be in Estonia for it, because, as is very clearly being demonstrated right now, Estonia has remarkably strong leaders who are women, including its Prime Minister, including its Foreign Minister. And because of Estonia's commitment to closing the gender pay gap and advancing gender equality among other key metrics, it's leading the world in all of these areas. Today, we also think of the strength of women in Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian women who've taken their children to safety in other countries, often leaving husbands behind, as well as many women who've joined the fight to protect the homeland themselves. The women of Ukraine embody the fortitude, the resilience, the courage of women everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now at your disposal for questions. We will have 2 questions. Please state to whom the question is addressed to. Please use microphone. The first question by Tarmo Maiberg from Estonian National Broadcaster, please.
Hi. First question to Mr. Blinken. Actually, a comment. Russia and the United States should return to the principle of peaceful coexistence like during the Cold War. Just a quote from Russian Foreign Minister. What do you think about that? And the second part is, in 2005, at the UN World Summit was adopted unanimously the responsibility to protect. It is an international norm that seeks to ensure that the international community never again fails to halt the mass atrocity crimes. Is United States with its allies failing to fulfill that promise when we're witnessing mass bombings in Ukraine, cities against civilians? So to Prime Minister, what about Estonia's support embargo on Russia's oil and gas?
Thank you. Peaceful coexistence has 2 words. The first is peaceful. And Russia is doing everything in its power to make a mockery of that word through its aggression on Ukraine. So, if Russia wants to engage in peaceful coexistence, which of course, in principle, we welcome, it needs to start by actually making good on the word peaceful and ending the war, the aggression that it is committing in Ukraine. It's pretty straightforward. Second, with regard to the responsibility to protect, we have been working together for many months, and we continue to do that to this very minute, to do just that, to do everything that we can to make sure that Ukrainians have the means to defend themselves against Russia's war of choice on Ukraine, as well as to help those in Ukraine who are suffering with humanitarian assistance, those outside of Ukraine who need support with the support they need. We've said for many, many months that if diplomacy did not succeed in diverting Russia from its course of aggression, and Russia pursued that aggression, we would respond, we'd be prepared to do so, and that's exactly what we've been doing, both with regard to helping Ukrainians and helping Ukraine defend itself, also imposing severe costs, some of which I alluded to earlier, on Russia, all with the purpose of ending Russia's aggression, ending the war, and indeed protecting the Ukrainian people. I think we brought tremendous resources to bear on this effort. We brought the world together in this effort. 141 countries stood up at the United Nations condemning the aggression and supporting Ukraine. And in the days and weeks ahead, working closely with our allies, we will step up the support that